Posted by you/scariest. Good. Serious, what's the scariest thing you've experienced that you have photo evidence of? NSFL my no good, terrible, can't wait till I die, battle with MRSA. I contracted MRSA a few years ago, on my left shoulder blade. The infection took off like wildfire and tunneled through to my heart and left lung, collapsing a said lung and sending me on a spiral into cardiac arrest and respiratory failure. Died for a minute, came back, died again, came back. I had to have a chest tube put in without anesthesia, and they missed the first try and poked the tube into my heart, poked my heart with the tube, and that's the last thing I remembered for 10 hours. The hospital exhausted every antibiotic and I drained their morphine supply to critical levels in the space of 4 days. I was told that there was only one drug of last resort, vancomycin, left, and by the time it was flown in, I would only have 5 to 7 days to live if it failed. I was advised to call my family and make arrangements, and they opened the floodgates on my morphine button. While the drugs were in transit, surgeons vacuumed nearly a pound of necrotic tissue and pus from my shoulder and also had to guide tiny vacuum hoses into the tunnels the MRSA had dug. The vancomycin worked, but then I had a relapse 5 days later and had to undergo another hospital stay in Vance for 7 more days. All in all 0-10, fuck all of it. Here's mine. I was camping with some friends in the woods behind another friend's house. Halfway through the night, I decided to get some more firewood for the campfire. On my way back, I felt like I was being watched. It was a half moon, so there was enough light for me to barely see around me. As I looked around, my eyes fell on a person's face poking from behind a tree. The face was grotesque, pale with hollow eyes and a gaping mouth. I didn't hesitate to drop everything and run, and when I came back to my group, I was panicked and scared shitless. After telling them what happened, my friends decided they wanted to see it for themselves and brought me with them. I was hesitant, but going with a group seemed better than being alone. We brought flashlights this time, and when we came to the place I saw the face, it was still there. After shining the light on it, it was a rotten styrofoam head on a stick, someone out behind the tree. It looked like it had been there for a while, with some green moss growing on it, discolor, action, etc. The scariest part about this was my friend, whose house was in front of the woods we were in, swore up and down he didn't put it there. He was pretty shaken. We took a picture of the head though. Here's the pic. My right eye tried to kill me by growing itself a stage 1B ocular melanoma. The scariest part of the experience was the day the doctor started calling it cancer instead of the mass and added, "Now I have to figure out how I'm going to save your life. Thanks, Dr. Murray, you did an awesome job." Treatment was brachytherapy, which involved attaching a radioactive disc to my eye and letting it sit there for 3 days. Felt like I had something stuck in my eye the whole time, but I was on some excellent drugs to keep me in a nice calm haze. Shared a room with a nice chap from Israel and we had some interesting discussions. I hope he's recovering well too. About 2 weeks after the treatment ended, the tumor went into something called necrosis and exploded all over my eye. That was the most fucking painful thing I've ever experienced. It's so rare, it happens to 1 in every 10 million ocular melanoma patients. They wrote a medical paper about me. Somehow kept the eye, and my vision only dropped from 20/40 to 20/60 after reconstructive surgery. Did I mention my doctor was amazing? He's a genius. Update, people keep asking about the paper. I'm not sure if it's available online, but it would have been around 2012. Getting hit by a truck while on a motorcycle. I was driving down a road going about 45 miles per hour, and there was a truck behind me, not even close to tailgating me, so I thought nothing of it. Well, I came around a bend and there is a part where cops sometimes like to hide. I was going over the speed limit, so I slowed down a bit, but the truck didn't. He hit me going maybe 45 to 50 miles per hour. The bike's rear tire got locked under the front bumper, and I was pushed about 100 feet down the road. Miraculously, the bike didn't tip over and I got right off of it. It was weird because when it was happening I was calm. Just sort of accepted the fact that I was going to die. When I got off the bike was when I turned into a nervous wreck. The kicker is that the truck had more damage to the bike. The bike was able to drive home. The only damage it sustained was to the plastics. We checked the frame and it wasn't even bent. The truck had a punctured radiator and a whole slew of grille damage. I was incredibly lucky that day, and it's times like that when I think that a guardian angel stepped in. That probably isn't what you were looking for. I would be wanting paranormal stuff too. I have witnessed some paranormal events but wasn't able to get a picture of them. They happened too fast. Finally, something I can answer. So I was 18 years old and just graduated high school. I get home from school and I'm dead tired. I used to play Madden a lot, before I realized Madden sucks ass, and I would play as soon as I got home. I go to my room, turn on the Xbox, sit down in my favorite chair and start an online game. Once the game starts, I hear a huge cracking sound in the room right next to mine. Like this shit sounded like thunder in the next room over. This sound came from the inside of the room, so my heart's racing and my brain starts thinking something exploded or someone broke in and I'm about to die. I turn off the Xbox and race into the hallway and stand outside the door of the next room over. I open the door and there's on some Final Destination shit a fucking truck inside my grandma's room. Everything is destroyed. My grandma's bed, her nightstand, the entire fucking wall, my belief in reality. Everything. I see an old woman and 2 screaming kids in the back of the truck and I close the door like it's magically gonna reverse all the damage. I start panicking cause my brain is telling me that the truck is about to explode. After all, there was smoke everywhere, it was dust, but I wasn't thinking straight. So I call 911 and flat out tell them a truck drove into my apartment. Everything turned out okay and no one got hurt. But I still sometimes get paranoid that a fucking truck is gonna plow through my wall like a fucking NFL linebacker and kill me. Envenomation by a brown recluse spider. It was hiding in my bathrobe, and I didn't even know it had happened until hours later, when I suddenly began to experience a pain in my leg as I have never felt before. Over the next week, I went to the ER twice, swelled up like a balloon, broke out into a whole body rash, nearly lost kidney function, and ended up spending 3 days in the isolation room of the CCU. It melted a hole in my leg down to the muscle fascia. Here is the bite wound with almost a year's worth of progress. Brown recluse bite wound healing progress. Was in the Alps with some university pals to do some field work for our botany exam. We were staying in a refuge in the middle of nowhere, at 1,400 meters of altitude and a 40-minute drive away from the nearest town, which was composed of 20 houses, the smallest supermarket ever, and a pharmacy. Anyway, we had an area of 15 kilometers by 15 kilometers to work in, which was a good distance away from the refuge in the middle of the woods. We were walking in the woods when out of nowhere we find ourselves in front of a house that was inhabited. Smoke coming out of the chimney and clothes hung to dry outside, but wasn't on the map we had. This map was well made and included even the smallest and most in ruins buildings to avoid people getting lost in the woods. As we approached the house we noticed a doll's head on a pike in the front lawn. We got creeped out, took a picture to show the refuge owner and quickly noped the fuck out of there. Turns out the refuge owner, who knew the area well, didn't even know there was a house there. Creepy shit. Getting attacked by a lone mountain goat while backpacking. Other backpackers coming down from the weekend warned us about getting chased around by a mountain goat, but we laughed it off. Turns out, mountain goats are huge, terrifying, and completely silent. This one, in particular, snuck into our camp and got uncomfortably close to us, and wouldn't leave without a fight, so we had to bail. Eventually, it disappeared, but it came back early to terrify us the next morning and trapped my friend in his tent. We found other hikers who had a gun and the gunshots hardly scared it. I took this picture after we packed up and while we were leaving our camp. It watched us the entire time we were packing and was holding our camp while we were leaving. Just gonna make a long story short. My friends and I went to a rave in Texas. Afterward, we were hungry and there was a pizza place near our hotel. We get out of the taxi and see this creepy place with huge clown heads on the side. I said, "This is the place?" And my friends were like, "I think so." We head inside this building and immediately people were sleeping on the floor in there and it looked creepy as fuck. Turns out the pizza place was a little truck right next to that place. Very weird. Mine is super recent. Not as much scary. It just really freaked me out. I had an intense dream last month that my father-in-law was driving me and I was in the back seat. He was driving so fast and we got into a serious car wreck. I woke up sweating and could not stop thinking about it. I didn't see his face, but I assumed it was my father-in-law because he was tall looking and thin and had dark hair. He is 6 feet 10 inches. It was so realistic and it was ing. So I texted my mother-in-law and told her about the dream and told her to tell him to drive carefully. I have never done that before and I felt like a psycho. Send the text. The next day I got a call that my brother was in a bad car accident. He is okay, but the front of the car was completely crushed, all of the airbags deployed, and the other car had injuries. He is also really tall and thin with dark hair. He is 6 feet 6 inches -7. I had never had a dream about a car accident before and have never had anything that realistic. It freaked me out. Pic of the wreck. My sister's friend was dog sitting for a family out of town. She'd go over once or twice a day to walk them, feed them, play, etc. The family had asked her to send pictures of the dogs just to ease their minds. So one day she got there, Camera ready to take a video as she called the dogs to her once she got into the house. Here is the no one else had a key to the house. She didn't see it until she rewatched the video seconds later to confirm it was good to send to the owners. She immediately ran out of the front door and called the police, who came and found no windows or doors unlocked except the one she had unlocked herself to come in. No evidence of anything missing. She was scared shitless, to say the least. Rightfully so. Getting run off the road into the divider by an asshole driver and flipped my Jeep multiple times going 70 on the interstate. The first pic was taken off of someone's Facebook. Someone posted the pic and said, "Hope the guy is okay. Cool to see everyone help, can kind of comment." A friend recognized my Jeep and tagged me. The other two I took. I flipped multiple times, but have no idea how many times. Someone there said 10, but I find that ridiculous. Miraculously, I didn't have a single scratch at all. Walked out of it fine, with no issues besides whiplash. I have high anxiety at night being left home alone 17-year-old old girl. That being said, when nighttime rolls around and still no one is home, I get very jumpy and nervous about everything. Especially windows and reflections. Anyway, I was walking downstairs from my room and looked at the door at the bottom of the stairs. My heart immediately fell into my stomach and down my legs. I nearly passed out and all my vision went white. I thought it was somebody behind the door looking through the window. It looked more like a pale ghost. Then I realized it wasn't moving. After about 20 seconds of staying completely still, I got out my phone and snapped a picture. After that, I slowly made my way down the rest of the steps, and that's when I realized, it was just the flight's weird reflection on the door creating this weird demon, person shape. To this day, I refuse to use that one light by the door when I'm home alone because it still freaks me out. Here's the pic. My house is a 100-year-old Victorian house with creaky doors and rattly windows. Every once in a while we hear a weird sound or catch a glimpse of something that looks like someone standing in a dark room. Most of this can be attributed to wind, shadows, and just being an old house. The other morning, I opened our basement door and at the foot of the stairs was this cloaked being laying at the bottom. There was only blackness where its face should be and it was completely wrapped in a light garment. I quickly closed the door and spent a few seconds seriously contemplating what to do next. I opened the door and the thing was still there. It hadn't moved or faded away or done anything at all. I stared at it and finally it dawned on me that this thing was just a blanket my daughter had tossed down the stairs for the laundry. It was so creepy looking it took me a few more minutes to go down the stairs to move it. I did take a picture, though. The blanket couldn't have landed in a creepier position. Good thread. I got a decent one. It's a short video though, FYI. So growing up my cousin and I would film lots of things. Just random stuff, us playing basketball, making short movies, playing in the pool, etc. Usual kid stuff. We probably got 100 hours of footage on these cassette tapes filmed through an old Sony mini camcorder. Side note, if anyone knows the best way to digitize those, please let me know. Anyways, I borrowed the camera from my cousin to reminisce on some of the crazy videos we made. I'm going through one clip, in particular, that's completely innocuous, just a video of my cousin's cat walking around at night. All of a sudden, on this 60-inch TV that I'm watching on, a super zoomed in close-up of a young girl's creepy smiling face appears for 1 second before vanishing and going back to the cat. Now, almost certainly it's a recording glitch of previously recorded material. However, neither of us, the only people to have ever used the camera, and our various cousins that we showed this to have ever seen that girl before. We have no idea who she is, where it came from, or who originally filmed it. Just a strange little experience. I caught Rocky Mountain spotted fever from a tick bite. Known to kill. I'll try to find more pics because it got much worse after this. It spread everywhere except my face and junk, thankfully. Went to several doctors who were all like, "Holy fuck, you gon' die, son." No idea what's wrong. I was put on numerous antibiotics and steroids. The picture is how I looked when I first went to the clinic. The doc was like, "We're going to give you the biggest steroid shot we have on location." She came back with a syringe that looked like a goddamn push pop. Shot it in my right side's cheek. I'll tell you, that shot is definitely in the top 5 most painful things I've ever experienced. So much liquid, nowhere to go. I could feel the tissue under my skin tearing and ripping as she pumped me up. I couldn't sit back down, almost passed out, and puked in the sink at the clinic. My condition worsened over the next several days. My fever was over 104 Fahrenheit several times. The rash enveloped my whole body. It changed from red and bumpy/raised to purple, then almost black. By the time my skin was turning black, The rash was losing its texture. I think I was getting better at that point, but it looked like my skin was rotting off. I couldn't wear clothes for like a week. So itchy I couldn't sleep. I went to 3 different doctors and had all sorts of blood work and tests run. Nothing conclusive ever came back, but 2 of the doctors said that Rocky Mountain spotted fever fit my symptoms. Unusual for it to happen at all, let alone in Ohio. The ticks were bad that year. Never found one on me or any sign of a bite, though. However, several family members picked ticks off themselves during the ordeal. The ammo dump at my base was blown up by sappers around June 1971. It was night and I was on guard at a hilltop with an armor platoon, facing away from the base when the hills in front of me lit up like day. I turned around to see the perfect atomic mushroom cloud we've all seen in movies rising over Quang Tri. I was stunned. It was like time stopped. If a small base in bumfuck Vietnam had been nuked, that meant we were in World War III. My hometown was reputed to be number 7 on the must-nuke list, an airbase, an army base, say, and a port. My family was probably ashes now. I may have cried a bit. I waited to die, killed by a shock wave or a flash. When that didn't happen, my brain started to work again. Our radio net went crazy and we finally heard our ammo dump had been blown up. At least 2 people died, and many more were injured when they were knocked out of bed or hit by shrapnel. We were on alert the rest of the night while rounds cooked off for hours. Not much sleep was had. All in all, one of the most terrifying sights I've ever seen. Here's a overexposed posed pic that was taken by someone at the base, 400 tons of explosives.